morning. Thank you for joining us this morning. I walked in, I felt like a party more than a meeting this morning, so somebody asked me where I was going this morning. I said I had a party to go to. So I guess I was definitely true about that. So thank you. We'll start the meeting this morning. It's Thursday, April 13th, 2017. If we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Can I have a roll call, please? Here.
Renee Gordon.
Here.
Fran Meyer.
Here.
Anita Saraceno.
Here.
Pamela Cronin.
Here.
Tony Dawkins.
Here.
Marlene Ruiz-Pascual.
Here.
Ron Wells.
Here.
Louis Chubis.
Here.
Brian Kramer.
Here.
Mike Gibson will be reserving. Yellow Point.
Thank you. Now we're going to have a presentation to the guests, the first participants earning the American Hotel and Lodging and Education Institute Certification Guest Services. And me and Hannah will be going for that.
Okay, good morning. I just want to say that it's an honor to be here to present the CGSPs today, and I want to congratulate you on your hard work because in order to be at this moment, you've had to take a lot of time out of your jobs to be here and stay committed through all the modules, so thank you for that. I also want to take the time to thank the employees that are here today in support of them, for allowing them to be a part of our Guest First module and help make history. And then also thank you to all the host properties, because without the Guest First program, this would not be possible with you giving us space to be able to do so. So thank you again. We'll be starting back up in June of 2017, and we look forward to that. So we're going to, once again, congratulations. We are in partnership with the American Hotel Lodging Association. And then I want to take this time, we would like to acknowledge one of our honorable guest service CGSPs, Michelle Berbian. She attended all of our Guest First class modules, and sadly she recently passed away. And we would like to share her certificate. We're definitely going to be sharing it with her family, but we want to take a moment and honor her. All right, so as I call your company and your name, please come up and receive your certificate. All right. So I have the Bonita Springs Chamber of Commerce, Cindy Burgess. Castleways Beach and Bay Cottages, Ellen Corelli and Sonia Monta. At Bell Tower Shops, Stacy Ann Edwards. Harborside Event Center, Irene Benoit. Lee County Human Services, we have Yolanda Lopez Torres. Pamela Teeter. Alicia Fernandez. Our very own Lee County Solid Waste, we have Angela Funes. From the Lee County Visitors and Convention Bureau, we have Nancy McPhee. And from the Lonnie Kai Resort, we have Anna Pope. And from South Seas Island Resort, we have Debbie Bubbly. Again, congratulations. You're now part of history. We are now up to 491 CGSPs in Lee County. CGSPs, but we would also like to take this time to congratulate Fran Peters from the Island Vacations of Sanibel and Captiva. She is receiving the Guest Service Gold Property designation, and she is the third property in Lee County to be able to receive this, which means all of her property team that you see is actually CGSP certified. So as Catherine Lugar, our President and CEO of the American Hotel and Lodging Education Institute, shares, 5-star service begins with your employees. And excellent guest service is not an expense, but an investment. Statistics prove that guests reward exceptional service with loyalty and increased spending. Obtaining the Guest Service Gold Property designation is quite an achievement and a very dedicated one. You are to be congratulated for making a quality service such a high priority at your property, and your guests will thank you in many ways as well as your staff. Please proudly display this plaque in your property. Oh, sorry. And congratulations.
So for sure, next time we'll do this, we'll track back. Congratulations.
At this time, I can take a motion to approval of the February minutes, February 9th minutes.
Second?
Any discussion? Any opposition? It is approved. Before we go to the next, I'd like to make an announcement that Roger Deaser or Larry Glenn is not going to be here this morning. They're at a 6-county meeting this morning, 6-county summit meeting, so they're not going to be here this morning. And also, throughout the day, we're going to be hearing a lot of presentations. And sometime throughout the day, I'd like to talk about a little bit more about what's happening like lately in our training as far as the hotel and the bad tax collections the last few months. I know there's been some discussions about that. So we'll be having, we'll probably talk about it during the marketing update after Brian and Clayton brings that up, so we can have the discussion then. At this time, I'd like to make if there's any public to be heard this time. Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. For the record, Jeff Webb, owner of the Hampton Inn Suites on Colonial Boulevard and president of the Lee County Hotel Association. I think by now everybody kind of knows the last 3 months have been down for hotels. In many cases from last year, and in many more cases even down from 2015. Now, some hotels have been doing really well, and boy, do I wish I owned that one. But we, as a record, as a hotels have all seen some declines. What I want to do this morning is kind of focus on one little thing, because I'm going to ask you a question at the end of my little speech here, and I hope you guys will be patient with me. And that is, I want to focus on the importance of that STAR report data that we see. Because there's a question in STAR report data now that we need as a TDC to really be looking at, okay? So keep in mind this, the STAR report data, which does not take into account Davidson-Peterson, is part of the picture of the whole puzzle of how the tourist economy works here. STAR report, Davidson-Peterson numbers, and of course the bed tax. On any given day, there's about 21,000 units available to be rented for bed tax collection. Of the STAR report, they represent 11,700 of those units. I, as a hotelier, have 102 of those units. And the STAR report takes a subsection of what that economy looks like. But to us, as hoteliers, it's the single most important document we look at. We're bonused on, we're graded, we get loans for it. It's super, super important. So back in November, we started seeing little chinks in that STAR report. When we got the report in December, which you guys really don't see until January, that report started showing a 4.4% decrease in demand for our market and a 3.4% decrease in occupancy. In October, the chink started even quicker. Smaller alarm bell went off, there was a 1.1% decline in demand. Now, we as the TDC have been talking about problems that we've been having for season for a long time. I mean, heck, go all the way back to this board meeting in February of 2016. We were complaining about the cold weather down here and the water quality issues, and people around the table were saying, I don't think they're going to come back next year. We're really concerned about that. In the summer, you guys all are starting to do some alarm bells by talking about things called Zika, which started creeping up on us. We started talking about all the negative social media blogs about how the beaches construction was happening, how you've got the beach construction, the negative overcrowding on the beaches, all that social media, and crime in Lee County was starting to kind of talk about social media. How do we compete against that? You guys were starting to talk about that. In October, you guys did a great thing. You guys approved an extra $2.5 million to spend in marketing because you guys knew we were going to have some issues, right? We also did something we've never done before either. We started to take that $2.5 million and we were going to go ahead and advertise towards season. Did a great job. And we didn't see some of the other issues that were starting to come up. The rise of the dollar value, Brexit, the euro, all these things, could they be impacting our international travel? You've got other things such as when October, November started rolling around, you got the travel bans, right? You also started getting all these elections coming up. And the elections started flooding the market with advertising, which obviously raised the cost of that advertising. And maybe even muddled the picture that we were trying to advertise. There's a ton of things that were going on in our market that kind of created this thing that was going to happen. As individuals, you guys all heard about it, you all talked about it individually. We talked to the VCB, we talked to you guys individually, but as a group, you only look at the big picture sometimes, as a group when you come together. So when we talk in January, when we talk in December, we were looking at a great bed tax increase of 4.6%. What we started seeing in December, the November Star reports, which showed that 4.4% decline in demand. In January, we were still really excited about November because that's what we were looking at, 2.3% up in November, but the decline in growth started dwindling a little bit. We, in January, started seeing the December Star report, and that December Star report started painting an awful picture, which we all knew was starting to come. And that's when December, we were 5% down overall in the Star report. We were 6.2% down in occupancy, and demand for our market was 6.9% down. Now, why do I talk about all this stuff? Well, I talk about all this stuff because it's important to understand that the results are now in for the tourist economy, and the restaurant and the attractions and everyone in lodging are seeing this downward trend, okay? What I want to make sure you guys understand is the importance of that Star report. That Star report can tell you way in the future, and you guys get it, what's happening. We get the Star report the 20th of every month for the prior month. You guys don't see it sometimes till 2 months later as a group. Individually, you probably do. So here's the question I ask of you guys when you now look at the Star report for January and February. And this is what's, to me, the thing as the Tourist Development Council, you really have to focus on. The Star report that we get for Lee County compares our competitive sets with our other counties. And the question I want you to ask when you look at that Star report is why? Why is our market of Lee County faring worse and losing more market share than our comp sets? Why is Pinellas, Sarasota, Hillsborough, Collier, Monroe, Broward, and Palm Beach doing better than we are? Why are we losing more market share than they are? Now, we're not the worst. Miami-Dade lost the most. They'll take the crown. So we stand here today as a hotel association, but also restaurants, attractions, everybody. We're your partners, and you're our partner. You know, there's some fantastic data out there that can kind of help you with trends in the future. You know, a lot of our people, a lot of our association people talk to me and say, hey, when is the TDC going to ring an alarm bell that we're having a problem here in Lee County? I said, well, they've been ringing alarm bells individually for a year now. We've all been talking about it. You've increased marketing, you've done everything. But as a collective body, we don't hear from you until way after the fact. And as an individuals, you guys have some of those answers that you can help direct towards that collective body. So we're part of the solution today. We hope we have some great information. I don't mean to put Clayton on the spot here, but Clayton but MMGY is probably a fantastic partner. They have so much data and intelligence and research, and hopefully they can help us take a look at some of these trends, what may happen in the future, and maybe have some solutions where we may direct some of our marketing so that we don't repeat 2017 and 2018, and hopefully we correct what's going on right now to make the rest of the year even better. We're down fiscal year to date in debt tax, but hopefully we can recover. I want to thank you for letting me speak today. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Jeff.
Wait, can I just ask Jeff, Jeff, why are we losing market share?
I don't have an answer.
Come on, you posed the question, you don't have the answer.
The question goes to all of us. Well, single-handedly, we may not have the answers, but I'm hoping together as partners we're going to have the answers. I listed you a bunch of reasons. Is it all water quality? Is it Zika? Is it the travel ban? Is it the fact that we had warm weather up north all year and cold weather last year? Is it social media? Is it high prices flying into Fort Myers? You know it costs more in season to fly into Fort Myers than it was for my customers and guests to fly into Fort Lauderdale in a car for a week and stay here for the week. Is that a problem? You know, is this a cyclical economic indicator? I don't know. But it's caused us all, when we talk to our guests, have to push our rate back and drop in occupancy, and that's what's happened. So there's a number of issues. Is there a silver bullet? I don't know. Maybe together we can find it and prevent it from happening again.
Thank you, give me the guys, smile.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other public comment?
Morning.
Good morning. Elaine.
I'm Elaine McLaughlin for the record, and I stand here today as chairman of the Friends of Cayo Costa Island State Park. You will, I think, be receiving today the applications for beach and shoreline funding to look over for the next period, and I would encourage you to consider the two requests from Cayo Costa Island State Park in your mix. Cayo Costa Island State Park helps us a little bit in trying to present to our audience a differentiated product. It is very unique in this environment in that you can get there only by boat. People from far away look at Cayo Costa Island State Park and say that's an entirely different experience than I can get anywhere else, certainly in Florida and in Lee County, and oftentimes in the whole state of Florida. Travel & Leisure magazine named Cayo Costa Island State Park as the best place to camp in the entire state of Florida. Of the 50 states, each of the 50 states was given a particular accolade, and ours was Cayo Costa Island. So those kinds of things help us a lot. There are almost 80,000 visitors who come to Cayo Costa, and when you think about the fact that they have to get there by boat, that's a pretty astounding number. It has a $7 million economic impact for our environment. So pretty cool piece of our destination. And I would encourage you, as you look at the needs, the new bathroom facility and the beach maintenance vehicle, pretty modest when you look at the mix of the beach and shoreline request, that you would consider funding Cayo Costa Island State Park. And I'm delighted to see what's happening with Guest First and all of the other exciting news. And you know, we are dealing with some challenges in our whole Florida market. I don't think that's going to go away easily, but this group, you people really have your eyes on it, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment at this time from the floor? The time will go to the municipalities to be heard. Any cities here to speak? Campbell's good? Okay. Close that, and we'll go to the report from Tamara, please.
All right. Well, before we go through those negative numbers, which we will do, I want to share with you 4 new staff members that have joined the VCB, which is exciting and good news. First, I'm going to introduce Courtney Ursel. Courtney has joined us as our content marketing manager. I think she's behind the post. Courtney, I don't know if they can see you because I can't. Courtney will manage our VCB marketing efforts and the email marketing efforts, and the content it delivers to develop visitor relationships and inspire travel to the destination shall craft integrated campaigns that engage consumers online through social media platforms, including content-driven promotions, website development, and brand messaging. She comes to us having most recently served as the assistant brand manager for Mars Symbioscience, a division of Mars Inc. She played a key role in the development and execution of their integrated marketing campaigns for a product called Cocoa Via, which is a coconut extract, a cocoa extract, excuse me. And on that project, she daily managed their social media and directed their internal creative process. She holds a bachelor's degree from Salisbury University in Maryland. And in addition to this, she brings something very unique to our team. She is a singer-songwriter. And she enjoys sharing her stories through original music. And in her spare time, she performs at open mic nights at the Perk and Brew in Cape Coral and other locations around Lake County. So please welcome Courtney to our team. We also have joining us, or has joined us, I should say, a couple of weeks ago now, Megan Contreras, our communications manager. In her new role, Megan will host journalists and will promote. Sorry. She will cultivate and maintain relationships with our local media, something she knows a little bit about, and our tourism partners, and she'll also play a key role in tracking our PR metrics and communicating media coverage to industry partners. You might recognize Megan as she comes to us from our local CBS affiliate, Wink TV, where she covered beaches and the military for about 5 years. Prior to that, she was a reporter for KTWO in Casper, Wyoming. I'm sure she's glad to be in paradise now. Her interests include helping active duty service members and veterans, and she's been honored for these groups for her volunteerism. She has a bachelor's degree in broadcast journalism from San Diego State. So welcome to... Now help me welcome Jackie Parker, our new communications manager. Jackie behind me as well. Sorry, I should have checked where everybody was. Jackie's role will include promoting the beaches of Fort Myers and Sanibel to media outlets, both domestically and internationally. Through familiarization trips and building relationships with journalists, she will work to secure editorial coverage as well as originate content to promote our area. She brings 25 years of professional journalism experience. She was the travel editor at the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, certainly a key market for us. That was maybe calculated, perhaps. She was a writer for Explorer, the newspaper's award-winning travel section, and during her 15 years at the Post-Dispatch, she was the assistant metro editor for health and medicine as well. Her byline appears in AAA's Southern Traveler and Midwest Traveler magazines and the St. Louis Convention and Visitors Bureau Explore St. Louis magazine, so she knows a little bit about what we're doing here. A native of Paducah, Kentucky, she holds a bachelor's degree in journalism for Western Kentucky University. She and her husband, Steve, just recently moved here, and they are adjusting to the Eastern time zone. So welcome to Jackie. Although she could not be with us today because this is her first day on the job, and she's at Lake County's orientation, which is an all-day process that indoctrinates you to all the rules and regulations of being a county employee, introduces you to the management team, etc. I'm really excited to announce, and Pamela is really thrilled that I am announcing that we have our sales director in place now. Jill Vance is joining us. And I'm not sure if Eric's speaking to me anymore because she comes to us from the West End where she served as a sales manager. Prior to the West End, she spent 7 years as a sales and marketing director at the Wyndham in Cleveland and also at Playhouse Square. Jill brings vast experience in developing sales and marketing plans in conducting sales training. We are really excited to have Jill on board. Just so you know her background, she has a bachelor's degree in business administration from Miami University in Oxford, Ohio, and she and her husband recently relocated to Florida in 2005, so she was a local hire. But with that, that is the 4 new members of our team. We are super excited to have each one of them on board and can't wait to watch all the exciting things that they bring to the table. So that's the good news. Now let's go through a little bit of this painful news. As Jeff mentioned, bed tax collection for both January and February have been down 9.6% in January, 3.4% in February, bringing us for a fiscal year-to-date total decrease of 3.3%. In terms of the STAR report, February STAR report occupancy was down 1.8%, average daily rate down 2.7%, so that RevPAR figure comes in at a decrease of 4.4%. In terms of the airport, passenger traffic in February was down there as well, 4.4%. And for the year-to-date, the airport, and that's calendar year-to-date for them, down 3.7%. We are going to give more time for the conversation and the Q&A afterwards to the marketing presentation. We're going to skip over the sales report, the visitor services report, and the public relations report, and defer some time so that that gives Clayton and Brian and Trey a little bit of time. Trey also is going to be presenting. I know he's not on the list. A little more time to talk to you. And then we're going to open, Commissioner Pendergrass gave us permission to open that conversation up to the audience so that they can ask questions as well. A little bit different than the way we normally do things, but we certainly wanted the industry to have a chance to ask some questions. Before I have you start, Clayton, I also want to share that Nancy's going to pass around your information on the beach and shoreline applications. They're available for your review. Nancy's got, I believe, instructions there for you to go online. I will remind you that the workshop is on the 27th at 2:30. And one other thing, it looks like we have a conflict with the Airport Special Management Committee meeting for the November 9th TDC meeting, so we're looking at some alternative dates for that. Looking at the 13th or the 14th of November. I'm not going to ask you now. We'll put this on the agenda for next month as an action item, but I just want to give you a heads up that we're looking at those dates. We'll reach out and find out which date works best on your end, let you know, but we definitely try not to have a conflict with that airport committee meeting. It's a little bit tricky for us at that time. As you know, we have a world travel market going on there in the early part of November, so we will see if we can't come up with a date. And that will be almost everything I have to share today. I'm going to turn it over to Clayton, Brian, and Trey.
Okay. Good morning. Thanks for having me back. I feel like a little bit being thrown to the lions. I like to come back when the numbers are a little better.
Me too, Clayton.
I'm going to try to thread a needle here for you because I've known Jeff a while, and I really respect him. He's a great operator. I don't want to buy into the Armageddon scenario, and I'll share with you some of the data around that. But at the same time, it's really important to pay attention to what Jeff said. I mean, we have to make sure we're doing a good job and paying attention to the numbers and driving the numbers. So I hope today is to give you a little bit of sense for what's going on generally in the landscape. Can you move it forward for me there, or no? There we go. Okay, sorry. So a little bit of general landscape, how we're specifically responding here in the market. Trey and Brian will share some of what the campaign elements look like and how we're responding, and then we'll talk a little bit at the end about how we're seeing the future. So specifically to the landscape, there is a lot of negative news. So Jeff referred to Zika and a number of other things. I think if you look at headlines in 24-hour news, you see some fear. And my mind in looking at the numbers, some of it's warranted, some of it is not. I'll give you an example. I think on the Trump, what we hear about the Trump effect, we see no evidence other than in the international market that that's having a meaningful impact on domestic travel. And there's been a lot of talk about the travel ban striking fear in the hearts of international travelers. I think there's a little bit of truth to that, but in the data we're seeing, we have not seen it tamp down domestic travel. Also, a lot of the headlines you see are around struggling economy. I actually think there's more merit in that based on the numbers, that there are some pockets of softness, especially in the down market economy, travelers who are not in the luxury set, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But as it relates to the Trump slump, I'm still waiting to see any true data around whether that's true. At this point, you see a lot of suggestion that it is going to impact the travel economy, but when you talk to the U.S. Commerce Department, when you talk to USTA, they are still fairly bullish around 2017. But let's talk about international for a second. This is a look at year-over-year net change through March in international demand coming to the U.S. You can get a sense of where there is some softness. The Americas are holding up well in terms of international travel. But if you look at Western Europe especially, if you look at the Middle East, where there has been some impact on travel, that's where you see some softness. That said, we see a lot of evidence that the European economy is going to rebound in the second part of the year, and we need to continue to invest in those markets. We feel very strongly that they'll be an important part of the mix here, and we'll talk a bit in a minute about how we're testing some things in Northern Europe where there's been less softness than the rest of Europe. This is what we call the Traveler Sentiment Index. This is a quarter-by-quarter look at future demand for travel in the United States. We do this, we've been doing it for 25 years. This is a look back to 2007, so you can get a sense of where we've been over that time. And then if you focus to the right of the screen, really since 2014, where you've seen that pretty much an uptick with a little bit of softness along the way. You can look out to the second quarter. This is, again, a future demand look. So we're looking now at people's intent to travel in the second and third quarter of this year. You can see it's flattened a little bit. It's come down over the first quarter and flattened a little bit. So to Jeff's point, we have seen a little bit for the end of last year, traveling into the beginning part of this year, a little bit of trepidation. Our researchers believe that had to do with the election. It had to do with some other fears around things like Zika, et cetera. There was a little bit of softness, but we believe it's going to begin to spike up again. And our research team feels very strongly that there's plenty of reason to be optimistic for the second half of this year when you look at leisure travel, business travel, and group travel, which of course Pamela and her team care a lot about, going forward. And we can come back and talk about in Q&A if you'd like to dig into that a little bit. This is the amount of money people intend to spend for leisure travel only, and a comparison back to 2014. So you can see last year it spiked up and has come down slightly in terms of what people are telling us for this year. This is, again, a look at what they're telling us they will do for behavior for the rest of this year. And they're saying they will spend slightly less. And I can tell you, when you look at the research and you parse this, the reductions in those spending patterns are with middle-class travelers, primarily who are doing frequent close-in trips. Luxury travelers and older travelers are actually intending to spend more in 2017. So when you look at the average, it's important to understand, that old axiom, liars figure and figures lie, right? You have to really look into the numbers to understand, although the average is down, there are pockets of the market where it's actually up. So for us, where we have, in many parts of our year, luxury travelers, in some cases mature travelers who still have a lot of discretionary time and money, they're actually intended to travel more and spend more in 2017, versus young families, versus some middle-class travelers who are starting to feel a little bit of trepidation around the economy. That's what the research tells us today. This is that same scoring system, the TSI, against travelers who specifically intend to come to our county. So we look at that on a quarterly basis as well. We look specifically at Lee County. So you can see all the components are higher for Lee County than our entire comp set. People perceive our destination more positively than they do negatively. So our scores there continue to be very strong. We also score really well in terms of people who have time to travel. You can read that as primarily mature travelers, people who have more discretionary time or further along in their careers have more income, and people who have an interest to travel, those most frequent travelers, leisure travelers. 155 and 137 is an extremely high score. You saw earlier 117 was the average TSI, so we are way above that. in terms of people who have the time to travel and the interest to travel. Again, focusing on a core, leisure, long-haul, luxury, or frequent traveler, we see the data continuing to be very strong. The last one's the one where we might have a little bit of concern. This is not news to, I don't think, anyone in the room. Our rates are perceived to be too high for the product quality we deliver. So if you look at that last slide, affordability of travel, we're down 13 points, and the quality of our service, we're down 12 points. And again, this is a longitudinal study we've done on a regular basis. When you look at the STR data that Jeff alluded to, and when you look at specifically our Florida comp set, and I'll show this slide in just a minute, we are one of the higher rated destinations in that comp set. And we definitely see in this data that people are pushing back on where our rates are. And I was talking to Tony earlier. He's done a beautiful renovation at the cottages, and he's been able to tick up rate, and he's getting it. And I think that's a suggestion where you improve the quality of the product, you can get the rate. But I think generally when people are looking at our market, at least in the research, they're telling us that I'm not sure what I'm paying for I'm getting value out of. So that's just, again, a backdrop to think about as we go through some of this data.
One thing
Right,
that
please,
you
yeah.
said, is that the guest who's been here before, or is it the new guest? Because I think there's a lot of differentiation there. First-time visitors may see something that people have been coming over a period of years, you know, they've seen the rate uptick, and they say, gee whiz, you know, I remember when it was a lot lower. Whereas somebody new coming into the market, they say, hey, this is what I expect to pay because I'm on this premium.
Very important distinction, and the answer to your question is it's both. So when we look at the TSI, we're actually ended up talking to customers who've been here and customers who've not. So that's a blended score against that. It'd be interesting to look at that and parse it.
I do think that, sorry to interject, but I do think that there's absolutely a truth that if we get them here, the experience that we deliver
Trumps
the product, so to speak. You know, they love the experience that they have here. But at the end of the day, we got to hook them.
So the question in my mind has always been, and this goes back to when we had the meeting with the Hotel Association when Tom Story, the former president of Fairmont, came down and talked about product quality, did a full audit of the island, looked at the product. It comes back to me to how far can we push rate, and at what point does that start to affect our overall RevPAR? And you guys as hotel operators know a lot more about that than I do, but I think, at least in the way I look at the data, we're seeing some indication that rate's becoming an issue. That could be because there's some perception that the economy's softening. It could be because we're attracting new, younger millennials, which some of our marketing is targeted at, and they're not seeing the rate-value equation yet because they haven't visited for the first time. There could be a number of reasons, but I'm just, again, if I look at this, we are above the average overall. We get great scores for people who have a lot of time to travel and have intent to travel for leisure, long-haul destinations, but we're getting a little bit of pushback on rate and quality.
Can I ask you how you get these numbers? How do you get the travel numbers?
So we have a panel we do on a quarterly basis. It's the largest of its kind in the travel industry. We talk to households through a full interview process every quarter, and so it's all benchmarked over time. That's why we've been doing it for now 25 years. And then for Lee County in particular, we have a separate subset panel we do that looks just at behaviors for people with intent to travel here.
What's that sample size look like?
I think it's 2,300 households, which is statistically valid. And a lot of our data is used by USTA and a lot of others. So, but we specifically, because Tam directed us to, look at people with an intent to travel to Lee County because we wanted to get a sense of where their read is. We're a very different destination than looking at the overall market, obviously. So just a reminder of where we've come. You know, it was only 6 years ago when we were sitting at 26 million and change, and we're now above 39 million. And I mean, we can always do better, right, Tony? We were talking about that. We can always do better. We can always improve. But we've come a long way. And back to my initial point, 2 months, because if I go back and look at fourth quarter, again, I disagree with Jeff. Actually, airport arrivals were up in the fourth quarter of last year. They were a little bit soft in the summer, but they began to trend up in the fourth quarter. The way I look at bed tax collections, that was actually up in the fourth quarter. The first 2 months of the year were soft, no doubt about it. It's why our fiscal year-to-date numbers are back down around 3% decline for bed tax, but it was 9% down in January. So we actually had a lot of strength coming through the end of last year. We've seen softness in the first 2 months of the year. I personally don't believe that is a long-term secular trend for our county. And I'm going to come back to marketing cause and effect in a minute to talk about that. But just a reminder of how far we've come in terms of bed tax collection. We've done really well against our entire comp set, and I'm going to show that also. This is a interesting number. So this also comes from our study where we talked to Lee County intenders. And this looks at it by age cohort. So you can see the bar on the left is actually 2016, the bar on the right is 2017, intent by age group. So you can see millennials and Gen X has actually come down, whereas our boomers and mature market is strengthening. So you could say that that's tied back to the fact that people with more discretionary time and more discretionary money continue to have strong intent. Younger travelers who may not have either of those, their intent might be waning a little bit. Now, does that mean we should stop targeting millennials and younger travelers? Absolutely not. They're tastemakers. They will continue to be long-term travelers. They'll be good for our business in the county. But it does explain a little bit of early softness. And if you look again at our broader data, you will see that younger travelers are the ones showing a little bit of restraint. So I'm just, again, giving you this as backdrop. So you have that. Now let's talk about overall intent. We're pacing well ahead of all leisure travel for U.S. adults, and we're at fair market share of active leisure travelers, those people who are making repeated, frequent, long-haul leisure vacations.
Excuse me, Clay, we had a question here.
Yeah, Rob?
Yeah, on the previous slide, was that taken, I'm assuming that was the survey taken at some point of 2016 and 2017?
That's right. So it's a quarter-over-quarter comparison. We do this study on a quarterly basis. That's why it's called Wave 1. So this is first quarter 17 versus first quarter 16.
Would there be any, for people around the table, would there be any sentiment change based on the type of traveler we get from one quarter to the next?
There absolutely could be, and that's why we'll look at the second, third, and fourth waves in a different way, because you're right, the seasonal travel would dictate different things. In other words, if this is intent, remember, it's not travel in the quarter. It was pulled in the quarter, but it's travel for future. So actually, you might, depending on how long people's travel planning cycle lasts, you might consider a first quarter barometer to be indicative of summer travel or even maybe fall. It most likely is not indicative at all of next high season. So again, there's so many different ways to look at this, but it's backdrop data for you just to consider as you're thinking about the overall market. And as I said, we're holding our own with active travelers in our county. So I know it's important to look at STAR reports relative to Pinellas and the other counties in our state, but I actually like to look at data from places like Hilton Head. I like to look at data from places like the Bahamas, Key West. I like to look at Hawaii even when I think about our destination, because we're still a long-haul destination, resort destination. And you look at Hilton Head, soft in the first quarter. You look at Hawaii, struggled the last 5 months, going back 5 months. So it could be that there's some kind of overall issue here with travel demand on the leisure side. I'm still bullish about the rest of the year, as I think I've said a couple times now. This is the STAR data. So what I've decided to do, again, liars figure and figures lie. I don't want to profile myself as a liar, but this is true data from January and February of 2014 versus January and February of 2017. And where we sit against other counties in our comp set. Now, let's take Pinellas County, for example. Tampa had a 39% increase in bed tax in January. Why?
National championship.
The football national championship. Drove their rates and their occupancy through the roof in January. So they had a huge boom in the first quarter of this year, right? Set them aside, we're beating everyone else for that period of time. Now, January and February, to Jeff's point, we've trailed a number of these counties. But again, you can talk about where we sit in terms of rate. I mean, Pinellas is sitting at $110 ADR or RevPAR index. We're sitting at 140 almost? So there are all sorts of ways to look at this. I say to you, look at the last 3 years, first 2 months of the year, and compare those things where we've gone and where everyone else has gone. And I really believe that you can take Pinellas and set it aside based on their January in the football national championship. So, and we could get into more numbers. Again, there's no disputing we had softness in the first 2 months of this year, and that we need to react to that. There's no debate about that. And we've been told, trust me, by the entire DCB staff, by many of you, we have a lot of pressure internally at MMGY to change that. So this is not in any way a denial discussion. But it is trying to frame it in some kind of reasonable way when you think about our long-term trend in bed tax, when you think about where we are sitting against other real destinations and our county competitors, et cetera. And I just think it's important and instructive to look at this, over a little longer period of time. So let's talk specifically about how we're responding, because that's what we really want to get into. And certainly we can stop and talk at Q&A if you'd like at this point. This is, to me, I said earlier, I want to talk about cause and effect. So the top part of this slide is October and what our marketing metrics were telling us. So again, to Jeff's point, he started to see some signs in October and November that there was some softness coming. And I think he's absolutely right, because even if you look at our marketing metrics, so that top part of the slide is where was our investment versus our impressions, inquiries, web visits, and leads. They were way down. So it suggests to you that the softness we saw in January and February is absolutely tied to the fact that our marketing metrics were down in October. Now, look at the bottom part of the slide. This group approved additional spending. We've put some new things into the market. And again, a reason to believe that we will see a rebound. The marketing metrics we're tracking through the first 2 months, actually this is fiscal year to date, but even over the last 2 months has been extremely strong. And we think that that's a very good sign for cause and effect into the summer season and even beyond. So I would tell you, looking at that, our marketing metrics in October going into first quarter, our marketing metrics today going into second and third quarter, that there are reasons to believe that we're going to rebound from a marketing standpoint. Now, there are many, many factors I can't speak to, or we even in the room can't. I mean, things out of our control. But in terms of what we see from a marketing standpoint, we see these numbers to us paint a very good picture for what we can expect over the next 6 months. Specifically, some of the things we're doing from a marketing standpoint. There are really 6 major things we're doing. One, we're re-articulating who we're talking to from a PR standpoint, sort of this whole sphere of public relations influencers and social influencers. And Trey and Brian will share a little bit about that. We're launching Islandology, our new brand campaign, which we'll show you here in just a moment. We have increased our paid social investment, which for us is a very great way to target specific audiences where we see strength in the market. So we talk about certain pockets of travelers who are doing better than others. Paid social allows us to very specifically target those groups and put market messages in front of them. We're doing some new testing around both test markets and test marketing, and we'll talk about that. This county, through MMGY, is doing the first test of its kind in something called the Terminal, which is a segmentation model, which I will talk about in just a minute. And that ties to content personalization. Today, it's all about how much content you can create that is relevant for the traveler you want to attract. And we're doing some really cool, interesting things around that going forward. Actually, some of them are already in market, as you've seen from the metrics. So just around PR audiences, let's talk about that for a minute. So for millennials, who we still think are very important, especially from an influencer and taste-making standpoint, we're targeting some new coverage areas. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Nylon or Thrillist. I wasn't, but I'm not in the target market. These are very interesting platforms for the younger travelers who are tastemakers and helping bring people to this destination that haven't been here before. We're taking our food, beverage, and wine product out of market into new markets like in New York City, et cetera, and sharing with people the great culinary options they have in this community. We're really focusing on that. Highlighting the arts and the cultural scene through local artists. We're targeting pitches around that specifically. We're hosting trips here for Islandology that are personalized and immersive for the media. And a couple examples of that, the shelling, we're expanding on our shelling, which we've just been amazed at the response around shelling. The beach-inspired manicures, more local cocktails. We're doing those kinds of things around PR and social influencers that are kind of telling a new story to the people who are trying to attract for the first time into the community. And this is a good example. So I don't know if anybody's heard of the Traveling Newlyweds, but on Instagram alone they have over 62,000 followers. They are sort of tastemakers for young couples, and especially young couples who are about to be married or go on honeymoons. So we're really engaging with them, and they're posting content for us amongst their following. In fact, I think Trey's even had some communication with them ongoing. So that's the kind of influencer who we're trying to get to change the narrative for that younger set of millennials. We still focus on our core market, matures, Gen X, boomers, but to get into that younger influential market, we're using influencers like Traveling Newlyweds. And that, maybe have you guys come up and talk a little bit about the Evolve campaign? Sure. And I'll come back in just a minute and talk about some more data.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. I want to formally thank Clayton and Trey for making the trip to talk to us today. You can tell Clayton has some fantastic insights. He's a great storyteller. I also really want to recognize and thank and let all of you know how much I appreciate Trey Stanley. He's our account supervisor, so he's in the trenches with me and our team every single day on every single project. Keeps everything moving for us, so formally thank you, for being here. So at the annual meeting, we introduced to you the Islandology, new brand creative Islandology. And we rolled that out this fall, and we're hitting the market in a big way in spring, leading into summer with Islandology. Basically, Islandology stays true to our brand essence, which is Find Your Island, and while evolving to a more personal messaging platform. And Clay just talked about the way we communicate with people. We're shifting our ideology in a way to have more, less formal conversations, more targeted conversations with different groups. So, Islandology, I'll read this for you. This is the statement that we've sort of adopted to remind us. There's a way of life on the beaches of Fort Myers and Sanibel, unlike anywhere else. It's a philosophy that embraces everything that surrounds you. Spend time here and you'll discover the unwritten rules and truths that all visitors come to love. The great news is that it's an ideology that's easy to learn and even more fun to live by. So here you'll see we have some new imagery. We brought in a professional travel photographer. We had a good core set of assets for this campaign, but we wanted more. We like a lot of images and assets. And so these were taken all around the county with two new ologies that we've rolled out here. I don't know if you can see it. This one here is number 32, Expecting to Relax Should Be a Surprise. And the one next to it, the couple on the boat, number 7, An Island is Not Deserted When It's Yours for the Day. So, again, the photo shoot not only focused on the beaches, though we do feature a lot of that in our creative, we also had the photographer go downtown because we think that the River District in downtown Fort Myers is something that our visitors are interested in, especially the millennials, right? There's a lot of restaurants, there's a lot of bars. That's where a lot of the nightlife takes place in Lee County. So not only in our print creative, obviously, Islandology has carried over to the digital side as well. These are just 3 screenshot examples of what some of our digital creative looks like. And we also have some TV spots that are going to be rolling out, starting next week, right, Trey, on Monday. But before I share those with you real quick, I want to let you know that we are in some really good publications as far as print goes. This one I'm going to start with is one of my favorite. We've got our full-page ad for Islandology in German, in Reader's Digest German edition. Right? Full-page ad in the Florida Fishing Guide, which is an annual publication. In Family Circle and Midwest Living, we take things one step further. We not only have full page for the destination, but we also have a guide to Islandology. Basically, that tells people how they can make the most of their visit to the destination. Both Family Circle, same picked up in Midwest Living. For travel trade, motor coach groups, Group Tour Magazine. We're in National Geographic Traveler. And we had a special ad in the 10th anniversary of Garden and Gun. All of these are March, April, May insertions leading up to our summer season.
Brian, why don't you pass them around?
So, you didn't catch all that? There you go. on TV all year. And we've talked a lot internally about our TV spend, where it should be, when it should be, how much of the budget should be dedicated to television, because there's no quicker way to eat up a budget than to buy a lot of TV spots. But also it helps us, remain competitive. Anyway, we took a different approach with TV this time. We're running in the Northeast and Midwest markets, and then coming back around to June, because June is an in-state family travel market, we'll hit in-state TV pretty hard as well. So rather than your standard 30-second spot, we have all of these ologies, as I like to call them. We produced 8 15-second spots, each one focusing on a different truth or wisdom that's part of the Islandology campaign. We won't just run 15 seconds at a time, however. We will run 30 seconds at a time. 8 spots, shuffled up, 2 back-to-back to fill that 30-second time frame. And I think we have 4 examples of our 8 to share with you today. So I should just be able to pop this right here, right?
Islandology number 15. A getaway should actually get you away. That's Islandology. Find yours on the beaches of Fort Myers and Sanibel.
Islandology number 16. A full day starts with a wide open schedule. That's Islandology. Find yours on the beaches of Fort Myers and Sanibel.
Islandology number 36. For a slower pace, add water. That's Islandology. Find yours on the beaches of Fort Myers and Sanibel.
Islandology number 7. An island's not deserted when it's all yours for the day. That's Islandology. Find yours on the beaches of Fort Myers and Sanibel.
We're excited to introduce those into the marketplace. It's going to be really exciting. Clayton mentioned our increase in paid social. What he didn't tell you is that it was a 400% increase over last fiscal year. That allows us to do a lot more things and communicate people sort of more one-on-one. We've been doing a lot of talking about taking our conversation back. What happened there, Amanda? Okay, sorry.
That was not Amanda's fault, that was likely mine.
Okay. It's okay. We'll let it slide this time.
Thank you.
All right. So we've increased our paid social budget by 400% because it allows us to communicate in a very, very targeted way, in a more personal way. This is some example of our e-newsletter sign-up and Lonely Planet guidebook requests on social. We've also increased our paid weddings social as well. We have an entire new weddings campaign that will be rolling out this fiscal year. So another exciting thing, we talked about doing some testing. We have 4 test markets that we're working in. Chicago, Minneapolis, Tampa, right up the road, and Los Angeles. And the goal is to test performance in these campaigns when delivering market-specific content. In this case, here on the left, you'll see paid social ad talks about maximize your beach time by flying direct from Chicago. Here on the right, the same message is shown in a digital ad. Fly nonstop from Chicago. And of course, these ads are served up to folks in the Chicago and the surrounding areas.
Brian, you said Los Angeles. You didn't mean Los Angeles.
Los Angeles? Yeah, Los Angeles. Yeah, the reason we're testing... No, that's true. But on the web metrics that we've been keeping our eyes on, it's funny, you wouldn't think it, but California, Los Angeles keeps coming up in the web data. So you're right, Tam. That's actually not a direct flight market, but because we're doing some testing, the way the numbers were coming back on our web metrics, we couldn't ignore it. We thought, let's do some testing and see if it...
Personally, I like the idea of California because we're seeing an uptick in California.
Well,
California,
that's-
Texas is moving.
On our list, for sure. And I just wanted to clarify, not a direct flight market. I want to confuse anybody. We know we don't have direct flights. In fact, Carol and the team at the Port Authority, that's on our list. West Coast, we want a West Coast flight. So this is one of the ways to hopefully help push that needle.
You know, it's not just flying either. I'm surprised. I see a lot of California plates.
Yeah.
That's a long drive.
That's true, but I want to say this, it sounds maybe, counterintuitive. They've got miles and miles of coastline and sandy beaches, but that water is cold. They can come here, they get their West Coast sunset, and they got nice warm water. Lots of resources, high disposable incomes in that marketplace, so it is one that definitely...
Again, I think as a segue into the next conversation, we're following the data on this. It's not just LA. I mean, we're seeing web metrics on our site that are showing people from California looking at the destination. So we want to test it. It's a small test, I believe, at this point, but we want to prove out that it makes sense for us, and if it does, we can double down and try to spend more money in that market.
Clayton, you mentioned earlier, you said obviously continuing with Europe, and I'm sure you're going to get further in the presentation about why staying in Europe, but I'm not, personally in my hotels, we've shifted funds from international to California, Texas, staying domestic. I don't know that those travelers are going to go, they're trying to stay domestic. I don't know if they're going to go international, and we're seeing them come to us.
So the Brand USA data, our own data, tells us that certain pockets of Europe are going to resurge into the U.S. and that their economies are strengthening for the second half of the year. One of the things I'll talk about in a moment is Germany has always been a key market for everybody in Florida, right? And Visit Florida is continuing to invest in those markets, but we're actually testing Scandinavia with SAS because they have shown not only an interest in coming here based on some of the numbers, but their economies have fared better and their outbound travel has fared better than a lot of the rest of Europe. You might have seen that in my slide earlier. But I think, we're, again, trying to follow the data. So to your point, if California starts to, we see a return on that test investment, I'm sure Tam would direct us, all right, let's move some dollars away from these markets that aren't performing as well and strengthen our approach in Southern California or wherever it might be.
In terms of international and backing out of international, we're not doing that.
No, I'm not.
In fairness, we need that summer business, and I think that market's still long run going to deliver to us. We may have a rough summer ahead. That's to be determined, based on some of the data we're seeing. But I think that backing off of our European market would be an enormous mistake for us. And keep in mind, 2016, 27% of our total visitors came through the international market, 10% or 11%, in 2016 from Germany. So, very important stat.
So I want to talk a little bit about segmentation targeting. I mentioned earlier, Lee County with MMGY is doing a first of its kind test with us. And to me, it's this fact. 1/3 of all travel decisions are made based on influence in digital marketing. And the question is always, which 1/3? Like, how do we refine that? If we know it's 1/3, which 1/3 do we focus on? So we built a model we call the Terminal. We have an exclusive relationship with Experian, who has more household data than any other organization or credit agency, and they collect thousands of points of data around households, over 200 million households. We've struck an exclusive relationship with them to basically take intent data from Adara, who's a programmatic partner we use to look at travel behavior, Experian data, which drills down on households and how they behave, and then our data. We talk to 8,000 travelers a month, and we collect data from them, MMGY does, and we're combining all that data together to create rich segmentation profiles for Lee County. Nobody else is in a position to do this because nobody talks to 8,000 travelers a month and nobody has a relationship with Experian like we've created for the county. So Lee County is the first MMGY client to do this of all of our clients. I just came from Hilton Hotels where I had a very similar discussion with them. They have seen softness in the first quarter of the year and they want to jump into this model too because 40% of their travelers don't come back for 2 years. And they're just trying to move that needle a little bit. But anyway, so we've identified these 6 key data segments, these profiles, that we want to hammer on from a marketing standpoint. Country streamers, dog owners, family amusement park visitors, gardening and wine enthusiasts, photographers, and then water activities. So that isn't to suggest that we're targeting dog owners just so they can bring their dogs. It's to suggest that these profiles suggest that people who have dogs have a higher propensity to enjoy what we have to offer in Lee County. So we've built out these 6 personas and profiles, and we're testing the ability to market against them through the Islandology campaign. So you'll see in this digital creative, we're actually targeting specific creative communication to those specific personas. The bottom banner, it's a guy with his dog. We've got music, we've got outdoor activities. We'll serve up advertising to very specific profiles of people who we think will connect with that content and convert at a higher level. And everything we're doing is being tested. So we'll be able to play back to the group how they've performed. But nobody's getting at that level of granularity in terms of our ability to market to these specific Experian and MMGY profiles. And we're really optimistic that we can move the needle in some of these specific niche areas for our product. And the best thing is, from a seasonality standpoint, we can target those profiles based on when we need the business or when they tend to travel. One of the fastest growing sources of travel in the United States is what we call gotta go solos. It's a profile we track. These are people who travel by themselves, believe it or not. 30% of active travelers in the United States have said they will take at least one trip this year completely by themselves, many of whom are coming from families. So it could be a husband or wife or spouse or partner traveling by themselves. So there are ways for us to target content around those people. Believe it or not, that's a huge thing in Japan. It's almost a rite of passage for Japanese travelers to travel by themselves at some point in adulthood. We're seeing that trend in the United States now. So there are ways for us to get at some of those profiles by using this data and connecting our product and our content to those folks. So, which brings me sort of the segue around content personalization. One of the things Brian can talk about. So 74% of travelers tell us they're frustrated when they see ad or web content that isn't relevant for the kind of trip they want to do. So if you think about a lot of the broad marketing travel brands do today, it doesn't get at content that's specific to the traveler's need or use case. So we want to connect that content, which I just showed you, to very specific audiences based on what they want to see at the time they want to see it. It's, relevant, time, and offer. So there are really a number of strategic enhancements I'll let Trey talk about in that respect.
Thank you, everybody. So as you guys know, we launched the new responsive website late summer last year. So since then, we've been slowly rolling out. I think we're about to launch phase 5 of website content personalization. So what we can do is geographically, in our target market cities and internationally, serve up custom content to each of those markets. So for example, if we're going into Minneapolis for Target Day or for the county day at Target Field, we can put a custom message in that market for them. So we've been doing that and slowly ramping up over the last couple of months, and every time we have something new, we take those learnings and apply it to the next phase. So as I said, we're going into phase 5 now, so I'll kind of give you some background on what we've been doing. Strategic enhancements, we do a lot of A&B testing. So we started out small and looking at the colors of the buttons on the website, looking at the call to actions, what's working, what are people clicking on. Some of those little things sound small, but we wanted to go in with this and ramp up so we could really hone in on what our key findings are as we go through. So we continue to do that often and find out what works and what doesn't work. Some of the newer things that we're doing are the fly-in placements. So we want to make sure, as Clayton said, that if you're coming to the site and you're engaging with it, that we're serving up content that is specific to you and specific to your interests. So, for example, maybe it's National Seashell Day and you want to go to the website and you're interested in shelling content. So if you go to the shelling page, we want to make sure that you don't have to work hard. We want to make sure that we're giving you an option right away to give you content. Maybe it's going to say more information on checking out the Sanibel 6, and you get excited and you can check that out.
So when you say fly in trade, just so they understand, it's like a message flies up
Yes.
on your website based on things you're searching for.
Yeah, and I'll show you guys a visual of that. Yeah, and that's a great point, because we want to make sure that the consumer experience is not too intrusive. So we don't want to fly over and take over the whole screen. It's going to be in the bottom right-hand corner, probably about a 300 by 250, similar to an ad that might just fly in, and give you the opportunity to click and engage and go right to that article. Another thing that we're doing with fly-in messaging is making sure that we are nurturing the process. So an example of this is if you're a meeting planner and you're engaging with the website and say you've looked at the RFP page, but you haven't quite clicked submit, if you come back and you check out that page again, we're going to give you another fly-in that's going to say, do you need meeting planner assistance, or how can we help, so that we can continue to evolve that relationship and get them to submit that RFP or to get them to that next level. Very similar for weddings. As many people know, when you're planning a wedding, you look at many websites over and over until you finally make your decision. So if you have visited our site and you're checking out the wedding content and you come back later, that's going to be our opportunity again to give you a custom message. We know you're interested. Can we assist you? And try to get them to eventually reach out for more information and get them to come here for their wedding. Also, addressing abandonment is a big thing for us too, knowing that people come in and engage with the website content, and they might click through to sign up for an e-newsletter, and then they might decide not to, and then maybe they come back to the site later. We want to reach them again and say, hey, check out our upcoming news and events deals via our exclusive e-newsletter. And I'll give you some results here in just a minute, but those tactics are working, so we're excited to see that. So here are some of the metrics that we're seeing, which is really exciting since we launched this in early fall. With more content personalization, we are seeing that people are interacting with it. So with that said, our pages per visit are increasing. So we've gone from about 2 pages per visit now to 3, which makes sense as we are giving them custom content and giving them what they're looking for. They are clicking through, they are engaging with that content. So we're really excited to see that. And with the increased pages per visit, we're seeing longer time on the site. So we've actually increased it by over a minute, so we're up 74% since we've launched this campaign, which is really fantastic, and we're really excited. As I mentioned earlier, we've slowly been ramping up so we can take all of the learnings from each cycle and apply them to the next. So we're really excited to see that. And of course, the bounce rate, of course, is always very important, and one that we always look at, how quickly are people leaving the site. And since we've been doing these new personalization tactics, we're down 27% with the bounce rate as well. So looking at conversion goals, as we know, one of our goals is to make sure that people are signing up for the e-newsletter, interacting with the virtual guide, or of course requesting a printed guide if you want. We are seeing all of these up as well, crazy percentages. As you can see, we have, this is a lot to look at, I know you guys have the PDFs as well, but we're seeing major increases across the board for people that are downloading the virtual guide, that are requesting a guidebook, and of course the e-newsletter as well. So some of the things, as I mentioned, that we're continuing to ramp up on, we're always going to be A/B testing. We're always going to be doing that and finding new ways to test wording, to test colors. Some of the big things that we're doing, if you guys are pretty familiar with the site, the 3 modules on the homepage. So we're testing those to see if people want to check out the Plan Your Trip module, or is it deals, or is it island findings with videos, or is it the local insiders and engaging with what the locals are writing. So we're constantly testing those to see what people are more interested, and then we can optimize the site accordingly, and we are testing those in different markets and internationally as well. And as Clayton mentioned, the experience segments, those are going to be huge for us. So not only do we want to make sure that we're reaching the right people with the right creative, but when they come to the website and click through from that banner ad, we want to make sure that we're serving them, of course, custom content. So, for example, if you are a pet lover and you're looking for somewhere to travel with your pet, and you see our great ad with the dog, which is Simone's dog, if anybody knows her. We were so excited to have the dog in the photos. It was great. So we want to make sure that we're giving them custom content. So if you click through, we want to make sure on that homepage you're getting something, that maybe an article that says Fort Myers and Sanibel, best pet-friendly hotels. They can click right through and continue on through that funnel. We always want to be thinking about our email program and leads. So every 3rd visit to the website is going to serve up a custom message about the e-newsletter. I think a lot of us know, and DMOs at large, viewing travel guide and downloading travel guides and requesting those across the board are down as consumers have more opportunities to engage with content through digital media, through social media. There's so much content everywhere that they're generally getting a lot of the information that they need to make their trip and make their plans without that vacation guide. It's still an important tool, but across the board we have seen some declines, so we are putting an emphasis on refining that email program. And one thing that's really exciting is industry referrals. So with this content personalization, as we've continued to ramp up and look forward to planning for next year, we're thinking about new ideas and new co-op opportunities potentially that we can roll out for the partners so that we can and continue to enhance our featured listings. So we've been doing that with the new site, and we've already made some tweaks and seen some improvements for partner referrals. But one thing that we're thinking about doing for next year is potentially using some of these fly-ins. So if you're saying, hey, I'm interested in cottages, and you go to that site, we can have a custom co-op opportunity for your listing to be featured first in a different way. So more to come there as we roll out opportunities for next year, but we are starting to think about what we can do for the partners with this tactic. So here's an example. I mentioned the Experian Creative, so you can see this one specifically is for photographer segments. So we're serving up a custom ad with a beautiful scene of Fort Myers Beach, and then if they click through, down here on the right, this is an example of that fly-in tactic. So it's not huge, and that's about half the screen. So we're pretty excited about this, and we're actually going to be launching this ideally next week for these banners and this opportunity for them to be able to click through and get that custom content. So more to come as we ramp this up and see what the results are, but we're really hopeful that it's going to be successful. And then we'll be looking ahead, and Clayton will speak to.
A couple things. Anybody want to guess how many websites travelers look at before booking a leisure trip? You want to guess the number?
6.
It's 38 in the latest over 9 different web sessions. So people, and again, it varies. It's leisure only. If you looked at commercial travel, it'd be way, way below that. But for leisure destination travel, it's a long period of time people are planning, and they're looking at a lot of different sources. So when we can personalize content and drive people to specific outcomes, we reduce the number of sites people visit, we get them to the buying phase faster. And I think that's a really important part of what we're doing. We showed you Brian showed you the markets where we're testing air markets and saying if you're in LA, you can get here from LA. We're actually in a position now where we can load dynamically fares from the airlines if we want to do that. So we could literally target Minneapolis and load a Delta rate into that banner that says from $149 round trip, and do that dynamically based on where those fares are for that day. So there's lots of neat stuff we can start to do from a segmentation and content standpoint that I think we as a county are ahead of many of our competitive set. And so main backdrop here, how are we looking ahead? I believe the marketing metrics tell us that things are going to improve versus the first 2-3 months of the year. I say that knowing I'll be back down here in a few months, and you can poke holes if that's not the case, but that's the way I see it. And I'm looking at this for clients around the world all the time. Our research team digs into this stuff every day, and I feel still very bullish about what's happening here, though I concede the first few months of the year were not good, year over year. But I always like to tell this story. So I don't know if people know that whenever people eat more ice cream, drowning deaths go up. They happen in lockstep. More drowning deaths, more ice cream, more drowning deaths. And we always wondered, is it because people eat ice cream and get in the water too soon? Is it because when people die drowning, people eat ice cream to grieve? Well, there's actually no cause and effect at all. It's what we call in research a corollary, and that corollary is summer. People eat more ice cream in the summer, and they drown more often in the summer. The two have no relationship to one another. So again, the theme of liars, figures, and figures lie, I could come up here and say to you, the research tells us that if you eat more ice cream, you're more likely to drown. That would be misleading. I believe much more in cause and effect. Cervantes, take away the cause and the effect ceases. When I look at the numbers in October and the softness of our marketing metrics and what I see happening over the last 3 to 4 months, there's a cause and effect to that. We spent less. We saw lower, well, that's not necessarily true. We spent a good amount of money, but the return from a marketing standpoint wasn't as good. The last several months of marketing metrics are up significantly based on the number of things that Brian and Trey just took you through, based on some of the tweaks we're making to the campaign, to the targeting, to the media tactics, to the social, to the content personalization. We're seeing higher engagement levels on the website. We're seeing more downloads of things that are typically and historically an indicator of travel to the county. We're seeing green shoots that I believe will pay back over the course of this year. So I think there's cause and effect to believe that our numbers are going to get better. We've also, as you probably know, begun to invest more on a year-round basis. So Commissioner, to the point earlier about it's not 6 websites, it's 38. People do travel planning more on a year-round basis now. It used to be in the old days, if you wanted to drive spring break travel, you started marketing in February and you knew that was going to happen. Summer, same thing, in the March, April timeframe. Now, people travel and plan well in advance of that. So having a year-round traction in the market is crucial. And we've started, for really some time now, to make our investment more a year-round investment. And you can see, these are our marketing metrics now, fiscal year to date, taking in the strength of the last 3 to 4 months from a marketing standpoint, knowing we had softness in the fall and even some of the fourth quarter, but great strength in the first quarter from a marketing standpoint. And some of the things we're doing, the holiday sweepstakes we did in December, this customized content through Matador, which has produced great returns. We're doing some partnerships internationally with Brand USA. Those marketing metrics are showing us that there is good engagement for our destination. So Cervantes would believe that this is a good thing. So kind of a summary of things we're doing for the summer. I mentioned Northern Europe. We are doing work in the Scandinavian market with SAS to test on a small level that we can drive some interest. We see people in that part of Europe interested in this part of the world. Tony, you said even anecdotally you saw some evidence of that. So we're going to test that. The Islandology campaign, now launched, and you saw some of the new content that's coming very shortly. Allegiant. So we didn't talk about this earlier. I don't know if you're aware of this, but Punta Gorda is driving a lot of increase in arrivals. I want to say it was 7 to 10%.
7% for 2016 and 10% for the summer.
So that's a low-cost carrier arrivals port. That's Allegiant, which is very much a low-cost carrier. We should be taking advantage of that. So we are testing a partnership. Brian has been working really hard on putting this partnership together with Allegiant, where we're doing some co-op marketing with them to drive visitation through Punta Gorda to Lee County. And we're in the middle of that right now. I think we're finishing up some of the details of that campaign. National Seashell Day, which has continued to be a great success. We're actually trying to broaden that into more of a day. It's more like a month or a season. So we will have our ABC partnership again this year. We're going to get them on air in the destination. I'm sure the Schlove Bug, or is that what I always the Schlove Bug will be out and making its rounds. But we're going to drive that through the summer as a promotion because we're seeing great traction on seashells, and we want to take advantage of that. We're shooting a lot of new assets. These 360-degree dynamic video assets are going to be great showcases of the destination and give us more dimension in our marketing. We expect the Travelocity Gnome to come back for us this season, which does drive some really good merchandising from Travelocity's channel. Did I miss anything there? I think I got all of them. So those are some of the highlights of things that are happening here coming into the summer season, which again, we're very bullish about. And with that, I guess we'll open up to questions, if that's okay.
Good job, Clayton. Thank you for the...
Okay, sure. And I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions from the council? From Clayton.
The study that you did that goes forward is people's intent to come to the county future looking.
Right.
Did you do that study last year?
Yes. The number I showed you was a comparison of last year's study to this year's study.
So was the sentiment last year to travel to the county, were we seeing that it was bullish and that we were strong?
It was for the summer in the first wave, but as you saw, it softened for this year in millennials and younger travelers. So it was higher last year in the first quarter. Remember, we're just talking about first quarter. So if you're looking for an indicator around the softness we've seen in first quarter, that's not necessarily, because this is a sentiment index now that portends what's going to happen the next 6 months. Now, the follow-up question to that, Commissioner, is did we see something in the Travel Horizons wave in third or fourth quarter that would have suggested softness in the first quarter? And I don't have the answer to that. But I thought of that when you asked earlier, so I made a note already in my mind to check on it. So.
And then I am all on board that we want to see that sentiment come true into the future, and we're all thinking positive that that's going to happen. Looking at where we are for January and February of this year, and taking Pinellas with a grain of salt because of the national championship, we have had a very tough first quarter here.
Acknowledged.
Do we have any thoughts, indications of why we're down in Lee County almost 3 points or 3 index points of occupancy versus all of the others are increased occupancy? We're down 2.9 when Sarasota's up 2.4, Monroe's up 1.8, Palm County's down 0.3. It's a pretty big gap we have any indication of why they're running a higher occupancy through those first couple of months and why we're falling behind?
I think we've discussed, Jeff did a great job of summarizing many of the issues, but I will...
Those issues are for the entire, those
Not all of them, not all of them. You'll remember when we sat at this meeting a year ago and had a very hard conversation about the first 2 months of last year, and that would they come back? Would we be impacted because of those challenges? And I think our foresight was correct. Some of those challenges existed. Those are challenges that those other communities did not face. Yeah, they had the rain. They didn't have the water quality issues we had. Some of the Zika, we were the first state, one of the first communities in Florida where the Zika was announced. I mean, in fairness, I think we all sat around this table and said, we're going to have a challenging first quarter next year. And guess what? We've had a challenging first quarter this year.
But I think you got...
tried to...
I was just going to say it, but not everybody had a challenging first quarter.
Correct.
You had pockets that...
I actually looked at that data, Commissioner. So the Fort Myers and the islands actually held their own. There were pockets in the real estate space and some of the inner island areas where that's where we saw some declines. I would posit a couple things around your question because it's a very valid question. It's a question we ask all the time. One, rate. So did we push rate too far? I think Tam's right about some of the other issues from last year. Two, if, again, I tried to show you some historical relevance, we've grown faster than all those counties you just referenced. So when you look at year over year, it's not necessarily, I mean, they've grown faster the last 2 months, but if you look at it overall, we have farther to go to grow because we've been beating them for years. So I think some of that's in there. From a marketing standpoint, we can always do better. I think we can, make sure we're targeting the right audiences, being ahead of where the softness is and reacting to that, testing new markets to make sure that we're taking advantage of people who do want to try our community.
In a little bit.
I agree that the growth has to be, the growth has been great for this county, but I think we all agree that this county needed to grow.
Yeah.
Years ago, I said, you guys are way behind the 8 ball.
Absolutely.
That's true.
And I've been beating you.
That's
So
cool.
I kind of take that as a grain of salt with society, because we should have been there to begin with 3 years ago.
Right.
It took us a long time to catch up with that.
But in terms of the numbers, when you grow like that, it's just harder to get year-over-year growth, just as a math problem. But again,
So that's why I just look at occupancy. So we had the growth, percentage. I just look at occupancy, and occupancy is down 2.9% versus everybody else.
But Brian, our occupancy for the year to date is 75.1 and Pinellas is 69.1. So while we're down and they're up, you're still 5 points higher, 6 points higher than they are. I mean, in fairness,
I look at this from boots on the ground.
And I agree 100%. Nobody's happy those numbers are down, but I think there is some context there that you have to apply.
the other thing is I'm excited about the incremental investment we really just started to make over the last several months. And again, the marketing metrics tell me that we should see a rebound over the next 3 to 6 months. Time will tell.
The question here for Renee. Jim had the next mic. Go ahead.
Thank you. Jim Lark with the Crown Plaza property. I have to ask a question. Should we be not talking now about our marketing spend going forward so that next year at this time we're not having the same conversation? Is our marketing spend keeping up with our comp set neighbors, Pinellas County, Monroe County, Sarasota County, and the counties that we are seeing that you can arguably say are doing better than us or not doing better as per se? Because I wonder if, this standard 3% increase we see in marketing every year is also, something that we need to address as well. Now, granted, we did get the extra $2.5 million last year, and, I worry, okay, if we didn't have that, would we be in even worse shape? And do we need to increase by 6 or 7% this year to make sure that, next year we have a better year, that we're not having these conversations? And then secondly, I'd just like to say I agree with what we're talking about as far as new markets go. I think, spot on about California is a market that, we see too with our hotel that is growing, Texas as well. And I'm not hearing anything about Asia. I'm seeing in my property definitely an increase in Asian visitors, specifically from China. And I don't know what we're doing about that because that's a huge market that's coming online right now. And I'd like to, see what we're doing about addressing those visitors that are probably the largest traveling or soon-to-be traveling population out there.
So I can address the market spend competitor. The budget thing's way above my pay grade, but in terms of market strength, we're unique in that we have far fewer branded hotels in our community at a resort level than many of our competitors. So you take Tampa, for example. We have a bunch of branded hotels whose brands are driving marketing into the destination through their central distribution, central reservation, central sales system, right? So that's one. From a pure leisure standpoint, I think our budget's very good. I mean, I personally wouldn't use that as an excuse for our organization because I think the budget's pretty good when you talk about leisure destination. When you compare it to some of these other counties and either other destinations, they have more commercial traffic and they spend money through their partners at a higher level. So if you took aggregate spend, for example, in Miami, across all the money that's being spent through the brands and the resorts, far more. But when you take VCB's budget, directed for this organization, it's a pretty good budget. You can always spend more, and I would be the first to say when you spend more, you typically see the return. But I wouldn't say we're at a huge disadvantage from a budget standpoint.
If I could add something real quick to Jim's questions and comments and to the whole presentation today. I'm personally going to be talking to our county staff, administration in the future about funding for the future for more marketing. There's some things we can control, there's some things we cannot control. As far as the water quality projects last year, thanks to everybody involved, local issues as far as the beaches, the city council, as Kevin was very active as Mayor of Sanibel and our state delegation there. Hopefully the state's dealing with that today and yesterday as far as the water quality issues, so we won't have that conversation next year. Hopefully we won't get 20 inches of rain next January because it would come back again. So I'm confident they're going to take the leadership there and make those changes and resolve some of those issues. The Zika is pretty much just a dead issue to a certain point. So all the issues we had last year I think is going to come back. But what we can do in the future to keep this from happening in the future is a couple of things I have on my list is obviously the funding. We look at what we have in our budget, we can do that. Work with Jeff at the airport to find out what the costs that incurs about we were talking about the high costs would come into RSW. It's the greatest airport around. We want people to use it, and we don't want to push people away to other airports. So we don't want to hear people going to Fort Lauderdale or Punta Gorda because it's cheaper to fly in there and drive across the state. So we need to review that and the friends and the airport management. So we'll be working with the airport, the Port Authority to reduce those costs. Things like that locally we can do to resolve some of these issues. And I will tell you personally, through the last couple of years, we get the complaints in our offices all the time. And it's not just about water quality, it's everything. Everything from crime, traffic, perception. A lot of this is perception. At the end of the day, it's still, the media still drives those stories. And I think we could do a better job as a group with our employees getting out the positive message. We have protesters on the bridge saying, don't come back here, our water is dirty. We could have our employees there, before they come to work, I know several that would come to work 2 hours early and stand on that side of the bridge and say, oh, this is our beaches are beautiful, please come back. Just because they're paid protesters on the beach for special interest groups doing that, we can have our own groups out there too saying the water is beautiful in Pine Island Sound and Farmers Beach, come back here next year. So there's something we can do locally too, if that happens again. But what we can do, and what I'm going to do personally, is get with our staff to see how much it is for the funding for future marketing, and also work with the airport to reduce some of those costs.
Jim, if I could, I just want to say a couple things about China. There's members of our team that have been taking a good, hard look at China for quite some time. We've conducted some familiarization tours of the destination. We take opportunities as they come to us. As an example, right now we have the opportunity to have a big photo shoot of a big Chinese model in our destination. She got like almost 1 million followers on Instagram, and part of that package would be she would be gramming out to all of her followers about the great time she's having in destination. Brand USA makes China advertising opportunities available, as does Visit Florida. They've been talking about China for quite some time. But when you look at the numbers, we don't want to spread that international budget too thin, because then we'll get lost amongst the clutter. So this year we felt strongly about doing the testing in Scandinavia. We were seeing more. Pamela, feel free to jump in on this. We're just seeing more positive numbers from Scandinavia than China, but we are taking a look at it.
China is definitely on our horizon. Brian just mentioned one opportunity we're exploring right this minute, but we have hosted a number of Chinese journalists. I think it's very important, though, that us as a community get China ready. The way we got ready for Germany and the way we got ready to host the UK and the way we got ready to expand our efforts in Canada, we have to be China ready. The VCB marketing to China and then coming here and us not being China ready is exactly like marketing to millennials without identifying the opportunities for millennials. So I think, understand that that's a bigger conversation, and one I think would be a great, maybe a great future marketing meeting to really talk about China and being China ready, because there are a number of things that we as a community need to do to really be China ready. But I promise you there are people on our staff very engaged in this. All the data says that China will be the #1 international market by 2050. Is that correct? Maybe I have, Fran, is my 2020, even sooner. It's the #1 market for my friends on the West Coast, in Oregon and Washington and California. The markets are China is very strong for them. And, of course, they have better flights to China than we do. But I can tell you that actually I'm doing a hosting with a Chinese airline soon. So, there are things going on that maybe we're not talking about publicly as much as we should. But, a lot of conversations about China are going on. But I think I want to emphasize the importance of being China ready. And I also want to say that our partners, some of them, haven't been as willing to host Chinese journalists as we would like to see. If I have a German journalist, the answer is always yes, and as it should be. We've seen a little more resistance on some of the hosting of our Chinese journalists. So if you're interested, call me.
One other thing I'd like to add about budget, we also look to leverage our budget all the time through creative partnerships. Clayton talked to you about the Allegiant program that I'm working on. We partner with our neighboring counties on a Southwest Florida promotion with Allegiant, because we do very, very well for flights coming into Punta Gorda and that visitation. So our spend, our contribution to that campaign gets us a lot more visibility through Allegiant. We've got conversations, and I've already started working with Delta Airlines as well, trying to work with the airlines, especially in markets that are good for us that they're trying to break into, like Boston. JetBlue pretty much has Boston covered, and Delta's trying to break through. And of course, we're right there with Delta. They're offering direct flights with more to come. We want to be at the top of their list, so we're already working with Delta. LA has started the conversation with MMGY on how we can work on some creative retail partnerships as well. So we're always looking for creative ways to leverage the budget that we have to work with to make those dollars stretch a little further.
When I hear you say, though, you're looking for creative ways to stretch the budget, it sounds to me like we need to get a bigger budget.
I look for creative ways to stretch the budget even if you doubled the budget. You know what I mean?
And Clayton, I appreciate the political correctness of saying that you got enough money, but again, I think there's a need to really address the fact that we've got to catch up. We've got to be in a position for next year.
A marketer will never say.
Well, Jim's money.
Okay, but yeah, we're going to take that pool of cash that we have to work with and stretch it as far as we can possibly stretch it, no matter what that number is.
All right, and I just will go back to a conversation that has been here many times. We have a pretty good sized reserve, and we say we're going to save it for a rainy day. Well, folks, look outside. It may not be raining, but it's certainly drizzling.
Okay, thank you. Renee, you had a question?
I forgot, no.
Okay.
I have a question.
First of all,
Good, sir. We have the floor over here. Renee has the floor over here. You had a question? Go ahead.
all right, first of all, Jeff, I think it was great that you sent out that email, because it got us discussing the subject, and it was very well done, by the way. Those presentations we had this morning told me that I think our marketing strategy, our marketing campaign is fine. It's a good message, it's attractive. I don't think that's the issue. I see basically three things that we might want to consider doing. First of all, and of course I've been preaching this for years, I think we ought to consider every year, not just now or some special function, every year we ought to promote in-season marketing here. When I was GM at Westwind years ago, I used to say the same thing. It's not an assured market anymore in the wintertime. So we've climbed $13 million in bed tax collections from 14 to now. So I think we can spend some money in season. So when it's budget time, this next go around, I think every year we ought to start throwing money into in-season market. Second thing is, and I know Brian doesn't agree with me here, but rate of late, I think we are on that cutting edge, and we have to be very, very careful. You know, I said we should look at trying to hold rate, don't drop it, but try and hold it and be careful about the raises we have. Because of my third point is we have to improve the quality of our product. You know, a lot of the stuff we have is dated, and we have to spend some money on capital projects to get some of these places back up. And that, I think, will help us tremendously. You know, you get to the point where all of a sudden, you know, if you have the old Florida look, but people still like creature comforts, they're looking for amenities, and all of a sudden they can stay at a Ritz-Carlton in Naples for the same price as they can stay at some of our places. They're going to take a look at this. So those are the 3 points that I wanted to make on the presentation.
Okay, thank you. Got another question over here?
I had a question, Grace DeLautenville, Sandalfoot on Sanibel. I'm just curious about the projection for the severity of Zika this coming summer. Any information?
I don't know that I'll try to speak to this. I don't know that I've seen any particular projections, Grace, on the severity of Zika. Certainly the summer and the wet season is going to roll around, and no doubt Zika will be one of those conversations. And Zika is a little bit like the oil spill, and I'm not trying to be, you know, overly negative here, but, you know, people don't understand where something is going on. They don't understand that Zika is more of a wet season issue than it is a dry season issue. It's like the oil spill. The oil spill was happening. There was oil on every single beach in Florida, was the perception of some people. Same with Zika. They don't understand it. They don't understand that mosquitoes only travel about, you know, a few thousand yards, and they're not traveling hundreds of miles away. You know, there will be some education, and no doubt, you know, we'll be dealing with that issue again as the wet and warm season comes back. You know, we've been very, very lucky here in our community. Obviously, we've not had any locally acquired cases of Zika. But I don't know, Grace, that we have an official projection for Zika, but the conversation will certainly heat up, I suspect.
Thank you.
Question?
So I'd like to talk about China for a second, because I think about China politically, but I don't think about China in tourism sense for Lee County. So what does being China ready mean, Tam?
Do we have the right kind of food? Do you have your materials translated into their language? You know, with the Germans, almost every single German speaks English. Not every Chinese person speaks English, so are your materials appropriately ready? Do you have the kind of amenities that they expect in their rooms, et cetera? So I think, you know, it's a bigger conversation, but absolutely, you know, when we're welcoming international guests, we need to know their mores, their behaviors, and the items that really give them creature comfort so that they can be most comfortable in our destination. So those are things we have to think about. It's very, very important to being a welcoming place for them to visit. I think they are going to, based on the journalists we have hosted, the people we have had in our community from China, they are going to adore our natural beauty. Remember what it's like in China. They live in really dense environments. They don't see the sky in the same way. I mean, the blueness of the sky, seeing the stars at night. They're always amazed by how the clarity of our skies here. You know, the beautiful water, the fresh air. I mean, those things mean a lot to them. So I think in many ways we're an ideal destination for the Chinese market. And as they come into Florida, I look at us as their respite. They're going to want to go to Miami and shop and have that cultural experience. They're going to want to go to Orlando and see the parks. they're going to need a break, and I think we're a sweet spot for that break. So I think in many ways, we're really well positioned for that. But understanding that clientele and knowing how to best speak to them is something as a community we're going to have to work on. Thank you.
Couple of questions. Clayton, great presentation, really appreciate it. What impact do you think the Airbnb is having? I mean, when you align yourself with Allegiant, my thought is lower end, just cheaper, and Airbnb, at least on our island and throughout the county, has risen dramatically. To offset that, what are we doing to attract a high net worth person, and try to segment and try to offset that? I understand what you're trying to do here, but can we do something there? And with some of the resources, as Tamara indicated, maybe concentrate more on trying to have that West Coast come here, because not only do we come here for leisure, but as travelers, it becomes really more of a strain when you travel to the coast. We certainly do. We have offices out there. So just a couple questions.
Great question. So first I will say not just Airbnb, with VRBO generally, and HomeAway, for example, still a major influence. There are headwinds for Airbnb in particular right now nationally, because they're having issues with tax regulation, which you saw in this county already. They're having issues with safety, et cetera. But they're still a major force. And in this community, as I said earlier, the numbers I see, and Tam might correct me if I'm wrong, but I see softness in the VRBO space here. I've seen some softness year over year there, as opposed to some of the specific hotels. How can we go after a more luxury market that would tend to buy a VRBO, Airbnb, HomeAway product? We're doing that already. Luxury is a big part of our market set, especially with older travelers who have been coming here regularly or who model to look like those people for new customers. The younger audiences we're going after, who typically are in seasons where we need that business and where the rates are lower, look a little bit different. And I think a big part of the segmentation analysis that we talked about is getting just at that. How do we, instead of spending broad dollars to try to get some of those people, how do we spend very specific dollars to get at them? So a luxury market is absolutely part of that segmentation analysis. It's a very good question. I still am pretty bullish about shared economy lodging. There's continuing to pick off market share, but not nearly the rate they were. And a lot of the market caps are driven based on belief that they can get more corporate and commercial business, which they're not proving to be able to do yet. Not necessarily affect us as much, but.
Thank you. Great question, Kevin. Because I know that I was thinking the same thing, because we all know if you come here, the higher tax bracket is going to spend more money when they're here as far as shopping, dining. So I know that they're going to spend more money here in other facilities. So that's a great question.
And there are a couple of things, and I'm sorry, I didn't hear completely your answer, Clayton, but a couple of things coming up. Well, a big effort around Condé Nast Traveler, super high-end, doing a big campaign with them. And we're also looking at, for fall, as part of our beginning to build our budget for 2018, we're looking at some things with the New York Times. So I want you to hear me. We know that sweet spot, but if we're gonna have potentially a bit of an off international season, we have to find a way to replace those summer travelers with some additional business. And with that, the strength of Allegiant's performance in that market, we're going after them during that late August, early September bargain season. That is not a year-round campaign. That is a specifically summer campaign with Allegiant. So just context, just so you know.
Thank you. Any other questions for me on the agenda?
All right.
Yes, Jeff?
Conclude your, or just to say, I appreciate, you all like me to stir the pot sometimes, and I appreciate that. And, today we officially were able to ring that bell, and you guys have answered. I think you got some great direction going forward. I appreciate that. Renee, you're spot on. We need to continue to market in season. That's so important. And Brian, you're spot on, because occupancy really does matter with this market share. We are the 5th lowest in rate for our comp set. And we bend our rate a little bit through February this year by 2.1%. So we did come down to try and meet that a little bit. Have we met the ceiling with rate? I hope not. But I have felt pushback too, so that's important to know. So thank you guys for listening. We ring the bell, and I appreciate you taking a look at this, and keep looking at that star report with these trends. Thanks.
Great. Thank you.
I mean, just to add to that, because we know there's a lot of hoteliers in here, look at your product. Because if you haven't, I heard today, if you're a hotel on the beach, and you put money into it, you're doing fine. you're a hotel that's potentially not on the beach, you're down. I mean, you're a challenge. But if you haven't invested any money in your property, the guests are telling you they're pushing back on rate. So go back to your owners and tell them, because it's only going to get worse if you're not putting some capital in.
And, you know, when we look at that competitive set, I want to be honest. I mean, Miami's in there. The Keys are in there. There are some folks who are at a different product quality level than we have. I mean, there's not a Ritz-Carlton in Lake County. There's not a W Hotel, and they have multiple. So, I mean, in fairness, we look at that set to at least judge ourselves by what's going on. But I don't know that that's the end-all, be-all competitive set, in fairness.
And that's what occupancy is what you focus
Correct.
on, not the rate, because that's market share.
Correct, and understood. I'm hesitant to say our market is exactly identical to Colliers as an example. Their rate's going to be higher because they have higher-end properties than we do.
I guess I'm partial, I feel Lee County is the best in the world.
I do too.
I think everybody should be here all the time. But, you know, so I think we have a better price than anybody else before, so maybe I'm a little crazy.
I think we deliver the best experience for sure.
So Jeff, I will forward all the calls that complains about traffic. Because what we hear every day for the last 6 months is everybody thinking, why is everybody here? So when you hear the hotels are down, it's surprising because everybody's complaining about traffic. So glad they're here, and hopefully come back next year and bring somebody else with them. Council, up items?
I do have a couple of things. One, is Kurt still here? This has been a long meeting. If you'll remember, during the joint TDC, BOCC, Horizon Council, and Airport Special Management Committee meeting, we had a discussion about water quality, and you guys asked if we could get kind of a one-pager on what's been done relative to water quality or the county's position. So you have a copy of this at your place. It says on the top, Lee Board of County Commissioners Investment in Water-Related Projects, dated April 11th. We will have a presentation from Natural Resources next month, kind of giving you an overview of those projects. Honestly wanted to bring them today, but you can see once we decided we were going to have this discussion, I pushed it back to next month. So I just want you to have that conversation hasn't gone off the table. We will bring it back. Travel rally, I'm reminding you of a couple of things. May 2nd. At Lakes Park from 4 to 7 p.m. And then I know the TDC members should have received an invitation from Mainsail Hotels. They're the ones that are going to be constructing the downtown hotel. They're holding a brand reveal at the Sidney and Byrne Davis Arts Center downtown. It begins at 10:30 a.m. on April 20th for anyone who's interested in that. So a couple of things you want to have on your calendar. And now, and one more thing. We have a birthday boy today, so if you will, say happy birthday to Renee on your way out. Renee. I promise I'm done, Commissioner.
Thank you. Happy birthday, Renee. If we could go on the table, see any items you'd like to talk about? Pam, start off.
I don't really have anything except thank you, Tim, for all you do. Even though we're down, we're still doing better than most. The whole team is doing a fabulous job marketing our county. I think it's wonderful. And I guess the only other thing I have is Happy Easter, because I always mention the holidays. I hope everybody has a wonderful Easter, and that we continue our season on a little past Easter this year.
Segment 1 of this Dare Boulevard project is nearing completion. Hallelujah. Segment 2 is moving on at a clip. I've had very mixed reviews about People's Season. Mine personally has been very good. It's hit and miss, but I'm telling you, on the beach, I've heard more positive than I've heard negative.
That's good to hear. Birthday boy?
It reminded me of a shirt I saw that said, age and treachery always outshines youth and exuberance.
Just a reminder that the Chrysalis Awards are on April 28th. We still have some trade show tables available, and if you have not registered, we're doing that out in Sanibel Harbor this year, so just get yourself registered and join us for that.
The other day, Brian, Jeff, and Jay, we all met with Congressman Rooney down at the Hyatt and brought up a few concerns, water quality being one of them, Airbnb that we should see a significant resolution to water quality, so.
You'd be a good representation in DC for us. And then with our state leadership, we're doing great. Yes, sir.
Just great presentation today, and look forward to the numbers heading in the right direction. Thank you.
It's not a threat or a compliment.
I like that you're looking at them and not me.
This is the messenger, right? Tony, how's Cattiva?
Not much, just grinding. And just season over. I hope we have a good summer, you know. But I gotta say, I went on the beach the other day, and the water quality yesterday was just...
Oh, it's beautiful.
I will say this. For everything that was bad last year, everything this year has been the most beautiful, the most perfect weather, the least amount of rain I think I've ever seen in the winter season. I mean, if you came this year, you'll definitely...
So if we take last year's deflection, then we ought to look at 2018 to be that much better, right?
I hope so, because, I mean, they had to have had a fabulous experience.
Well, it hasn't rained for 3 months, but you got the brush fires. We had some phone calls about that, but, you know, I have any hotels in Lehigh, you're good to go. So. Any other comments? No? Make a motion to adjourn? Favor say aye. Thank you.
Thank you.